Big Seance Podcast, episode 137. John Oliver on Psychics.
Welcome to the Big Seance Podcast. I'm Patrick Keller of BigSeance.com, and this is a place for an open discussion on all things paranormal, but specifically topics like ghosts and hauntings, paranormal research, spirit communication, psychics and mediums, and life after death. So basically, anything that pops up in my paranormal world. The candles are already lit, so you might as well come on in and join the seance.
Earlier this week, I was relaxing in my comfy chair after a long day of work. In the evenings during the week, I don't always care to have input on what's on TV because, at least for a while, I usually zone out with a mindless game on my phone no matter what's on. So most evenings, my husband will coordinate the television entertainment, and I either choose to tune in or zone out. Well, this time I tuned in. It was Last Week Tonight with John Oliver on HBO. If you don't know the name, John Oliver is an English comedian, and I think he's funny, usually. He's also a political commentator, and outside of this podcast, that's something I usually enjoy checking out. The segment for this particular evening was Psychics. In the clip you're about to hear, I've censored some of the language, and I've edited out a few portions to make it more suitable for all audiences. But you may want to skip this episode if you have young paranerds around. Have a listen.
Psychics, the only people with more misplaced confidence than Michael Avenatti. Now, chances are you haven't thought about psychics in a while, which is weird. There's not really a whole lot else going on. But if you watch daytime TV at all, you'll see that they pop up all the time.
My next guest started communicating with the dead when she was just a toddler.
She's a wife and a mom who also happens to talk to dead people.
Please welcome celebrity pet psychic. Our next guest is a clairvoyant to the stars.
We're back with a group of friends who share a very unique bond. They are all psychic.
Okay, I guess it's good that at least Dr. Oz isn't wearing scrubs in that clip, but I'd still like him to do more to signal he now lacks credibility as a medical professional. I think a sandwich sign that says walking joke is the clothing choice that I would be comfortable with. And look, before we go any further, I am not going to be litigating whether psychics are real in this piece. For one, they're not. See? No litigation required. Also, for anyone who does believe in psychic powers, I know there is nothing I could say that could convince you otherwise. Logic isn't the reason that you believe in them, and it won't be the reason that you stop. Which is not to say that I won't be showing you clips of psychics f***ing up, but that is only because it's really funny.
This is a girl who you said was beaten and killed.
Okay.
This little girl is me. And you told somebody that she's dead.
Wait a minute. You didn't disappear?
I'm right here.
Well, that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, that is interesting. I guess her psychic abilities didn't include predicting when she'd be utterly humiliated on national television. And look, it is easy to dismiss psychics as a joke. Really easy. Fun, too. But the fact of the matter is, one recent poll found 4 in 10 Americans believe in psychics. Just think about that. Statistically, that means out of all the people who saw John Travolta's Gotti movie, 4 of them believe in psychics. So, whether they are real or not is incidental. What matters is a lot of people think they are. And the psychic industry is both larger and grimmer than you might assume. By one estimate, it's a $2.2 billion industry. And there has been a lot of predatory behaviour. When the FTC settled charges with the companies behind the Psychic Readers Network in 2002, the one that featured Miss Cleo, they found that over one 3-year period, they had charged people about $1 billion and had collected half of it. They took in $500 million. I had no idea psychics could make that much money. It's like finding out the second richest person in the world behind Jeff Bezos is this GameStop employee named Greg. I mean, good for Greg, I guess. But now I've got a lot of questions about GameStop and literally everything else. So tonight, let's take a look at the psychic industry, particularly one of the most insidious parts of it, mediums. People who claim to be able to communicate with the dead. They are everywhere on TV. Some even have their own reality shows.
She's a professional psychic.
It's me, Mary O. Madonna mia.
Mary knows best.
Hollywood Media on E. Psychic Tia on A&E. Mama Medium, November 5th at 9 on TLC.
Spirit is important to me, just as important as my hair and my nails.
Long Island Medium, only on TLC.
The crazy thing about these shows is how they choose to focus on the psychics' personal lives. Who gives a shit about that? If I actually believed they could communicate with the dead, that is the only thing I'd want to see them doing. The Long Island Medium can ask Abraham Lincoln, Gandhi and Shakespeare anything she wants. So tune in next week as she thinks about getting bangs. And look, I will admit, mediums make for compelling TV. Most people have seen at least one of them bring someone to tears with messages from dead loved ones like this.
Did you lose your husband, ma'am? Your husband wants to thank you for caring for him and allowing him to leave the physical world with dignity and grace.
Now, that woman is clearly genuinely touched. Although I will say, it is weird that the conduit to the afterlife is, for some reason, Teresa Caputo, living proof of what would happen if you added too much baking soda to Edie Falco. And while watching people tear up can seem incredible, the techniques that psychics use to achieve those moments are significantly less incredible. Because there are two basic techniques that psychics tend to use. The first is called cold reading. It's basically taking high-probability guesses, like, I'm sensing a loved one who had problems in the chest area, or is there a J or an M in a loved one's name? Here are some cold reading in action.
All right. And is there a D, like a Daniel, David? Like, there's a big D. So for me, it's initials. It's usually months of the year, like December being important.
Who is the MR name? Mark, Mary, Marie. They don't have to be past. They could be here in the physical world.
Either Maureen, Marianne. There's an M name. Where's the M connection to you?
Does someone have a scar on the foot?
I do.
Thank you. Because your daddy is telling me there's a scar on your foot.
She departed of Alzheimer's or some type of dementia or something of the brain, and that you had to make choices and decisions connected to her departure.
Did anybody have either a brain tumor, brain aneurysm, or a cerebral hemorrhage? Not connected to him, not connected to you. Somebody behind you had that.
Oh, someone behind her had that. Nice save, buddy. Interestingly, it often turns out that a psychic's wrong guess is just energy from somewhere else in the room. A room, incidentally, that is very likely to have someone who had one of the problems he just listed, because cerebrovascular diseases are the 5th leading cause of death in the United States. It's like asking a room full of praying mantises, has anybody here lost a loved one because you ate them after having sex? You know all those little green hands are going up. The secret of cold reading is, the broader the generality, the higher the chance it resonates with someone. It is the same reason that fortune cookies predict romantic developments ahead, and not, your wife is going to seem icy and withholding around the 12th of the month. And that's because when she asked you to handle the thing with the grout in the shower, she didn't mean be the plumber's point of contact but keep her abreast of every step of the grouting process. She meant she wanted it off her plate. And she just feels like text in the middle of the workday asking if she thinks the landlord is going to ask for the plumber's insurance. That's not off her plate. That's just you, Aaron, filling up the plate instead of the plumber. Does that make sense, Aaron? It's like the garbage disposal installation all over again. Lucky numbers 8, 14 and 23. And sometimes psychics make laughably sure bets. For instance, here's John Edward in Huntington, Long Island, a town where nearly 1 in 5 residents are of Irish ancestry.
Is there a Brian Flanagan or O'Flynn or O'Sullivan or O'Reilly or some type of... Who's passed? Brian O-something, Flanagan, Sullivan, something like that?
What are you doing? Brian O'Flanagan or O'Flynn or O-something, you're supposed to be speaking directly to people's dead relatives, not trying to guess the name of the Lucky Charms mascot. And for the record, that leprechaun's name, Ibrahim Abdul Hamid bin Salim. If that surprises you, maybe update your antiquated Irish stereotypes. And once a psychic has you on the hook, they use your responses, as well as non-verbal cues that you may be giving them, to make narrower and narrower guesses until you are amazed at what they've just done. Of course, it's not an exact science. It's not a science at all. And sometimes things do go wrong. In fact, let's pick up John Edwards' reading with the family of Brian O-something as he doubles down on a bad guess.
I'm kind of getting the feeling of not liking the older female. Like, not liking the mother figure. So if you tell me that you didn't like his father's mother, then I would understand that.
Oh, you got the wrong Brian then.
I don't think I do. I don't think I do. I just want to be really clear because I can't tell you what you want to hear. I can only tell you what they're showing me. And if he's calling your mother a I'm going to pass it on.
Oh my God! Cold reading is basically just a magic trick, and yet prominent smart people are willing to co-sign on psychics' abilities. A few years ago, Tyler Henry, the Hollywood medium and anime drawing of Jared Kushner, went on the Today Show to do a reading of one of their anchors, and I'm afraid that it's the exact Today Show anchor that you are hoping/dreading it is.
There's a reference to fishing, but he's talking about being spoken out loud to. I know what this is, actually. I don't know if you're aware of this, but he's acknowledging that an individual will be out on a boat, and I feel like I'm sitting alone and I'm fishing, and I'm thinking Dad. And he's having me acknowledge this feeling of like, I'm there with you, I'm there with you.
You know, my dad shared two passions with me. He shared golf and fishing.
Nice.
And I do go out and fish a lot alone on a boat. And this idea that might be a time to communicate with him, or that he's attempting to communicate, is phenomenal to me.
Yeah, phenomenal. Look, maybe Tyler Henry just took a shot that an older, straight, white male was upwards of lukewarm toward fishing. If he did, that would be cold reading. But he may have been using the other technique here of hot reading, which involves doing prior research on a subject. So, for instance, he could have read articles where Lauer talks about his father's passion for fishing, or seen interviews that Lauer gave, like this one.
My dad taught me how to fish. When I stand in a trout stream now, and I've got the waders on, and I've got a fly rod in my hand, or I'm fishing for bass, I think about sitting in a boat with my dad.
Look, maybe Tyler Henry genuinely accessed the afterlife, an action which would fundamentally change our understanding of everything on Earth. Or maybe he just Googled Matt Lauer dad and hit the jackpot. So to recap, hot reading, researching people beforehand. The even lazier skill than cold reading, which basically involves indiscriminately shouting the names of dead Irishmen in a hotel ballroom. And what's surprising is, whichever technique Tyler used, Lauer fell for it. And he is smart. He's a sophisticated Manhattan sex monster. But he fell for it. Hard. So hard, he wanted to make it clear to the viewers at home that this was way more than just your standard TV bull.
I tell you, I got home, I cried. I did plenty of crying when I got home.
It's amazing.
And we want to let you know, Season 2 of Hollywood Medium with Tyler Henry. It almost seems weird to be doing it as a promo right now because it was so much more important to me than a promo. It premieres Wednesday, August 10th on our sister network, E!
Wow. Everything about that is a little strange, not least the fact that it is weird to envision a scenario in which something happened at the Today Show offices and then Matt Lauer was the one who went home and cried. And look, you can see why people are vulnerable to psychics. A message from a lost loved one is something many people in the midst of grief would do anything for. And psychics may tell themselves that they offer a harmless way to deal with painful loss. In fact, just watch as Teresa Caputo pretty much spells that out in response to a fairly obvious question.
So when a tragedy happens, let's say a murder, if somebody comes to a loved one and the spirit of the person who was murdered is there, could that spirit potentially tell you who did it?
They will acknowledge maybe the relationship, but never will call someone out on a name.
Why is that?
My thing, how I use my gift is I only want messages that are going to help someone through the healing process.
Oh, come on. First, to be clear, if I was murdered, I would definitely name names as a ghost. It's not like one of the rules in heaven is ghost snitches get ghost stitches. And you might say at this point, hold on, where is the downside in telling people their grandmother loved them? But I would argue that at best, it is reckless for a stranger to take a stab at ventriloquizing the dead. Loss is complicated and mourning doesn't look the same for everyone. But at worst, when psychic abilities are presented as authentic, it emboldens a vast underworld of unscrupulous vultures, more than happy to make money by offering an open line to the afterlife, as well as many other bull services. Take Rose Marks. She ran a lucrative psychic ring and in 2014 went to prison for defrauding clients of more than $17 million, much of which came from best-selling author Jude Devereaux, who Marks had promised to reconnect with her dead son. And the sick thing is, parents in crisis are frequently actively targeted by psychics at their most desperate moments.
John and Joanne Lowitzer have been searching for their 17-year-old daughter, Allie, since she vanished last year. But when the case made national news, The Houston parents say they became inundated with calls from so-called psychic detectives. They say some even showed up at their front door, promising their psychic visions could help bring Allie home.
He guaranteed me that he'd find Allie in 3 days. I mean, what parent wouldn't be excited to hear that you're going to have your daughter home in 3 days?
That is absolutely horrible. Because the last thing any parent needs in that situation is having to fend off an attention-seeking parasite who feeds off personal tragedy like a human-sized deer tick. And the problem is, TV actively enables that ghoulishness. The Montel Williams show regularly featured Sylvia Brown, a well-known psychic who advised parents with missing children on how to locate their kids. On one episode, she advised the mother of Amanda Berry, a missing child who had been kidnapped. Now, Amanda was actually alive and watching that episode from captivity. And after she eventually escaped, she talked about how watching it had felt.
I would watch her every time she was on Montel, and I'd say, I wish my mom would go in there. And then she could tell my mom that I was alive and that I'm okay.
But Sylvia Brown breaks Luana's hope.
I just hate this. She's not alive, honey.
I just broke down crying because I couldn't believe she said that. And then my mom broke down crying, so that hurt even worse.
That is heartbreaking. And Sylvia Brown is clearly an awful person for doing that. But I would argue that Montel also bears some blame for giving Brown a platform to begin with. Put it this way, if Oprah interviewed a live alligator and it ate 4 members of her audience, I'd be angry with the alligator, but I'd also be kind of angry with Oprah. Sylvia Brown actually died a few years ago. Or did she? People have been wrong about that sort of thing before. Maybe she's alive and watching me refer to her as dead. The one thing I know for sure is that Montel Williams' show is definitely deceased. But, daytime shows are still holding hands with this shit. Just last month, Dr. Phil had a psychic detective on to help solve a cold case. And why would he do that? The only logical explanation for letting a professional guesser weigh in would be if Dr. Phil was actually the murderer and he was trying to throw people off the scent. But apart from that explanation that now makes a lot of sense, there is no explanation. Although I will say this, every now and then, when handled responsibly, a psychic on television is a delightful thing. Just watch this spectacular local news investigation of a psychic named Deborah Dominique, who, in exchange for $160, met an undercover reporter at a Denny's.
Our producer met her at a coffee shop, saying she wants to know what happened to Matthew, the 10-year-old boy in this photo.
It's so tragic.
After staring at his photo, she uses a special pendulum, claiming it allows her to talk with the dead.
They're saying he's not alive anymore.
And then she claims she is connected directly with Matthew.
He's wearing white. He's in heaven.
But is he? Because we're pretty sure Matthew, the boy in this photo, is not wearing white or in heaven. In fact, we know he's wearing black and is alive because you're looking at him sitting in the booth right behind her.
Yep, that boy is indeed in the opposite of heaven. He's in a Denny's. But wait till you see exactly how they bust her, because it is just perfect.
I'm Curtis Mink from Channel 13. How are you?
I'm fine.
Showing her the picture of Matthew, she tells me she thinks he was taken.
I understand you said you thought he was deceased.
Yes, I believe he could be.
I've got news for you. It might come as a shock, but he's very much alive.
Oh, that's great.
And he's actually standing right behind you right now.
Oh, my goodness. That's great. That's great.
It is great. It is great. It's utter perfection. The only way that could have been any better is if the first thing that kid said to her was, "Hey, Mom." And I would argue that that is the only responsible way to put a psychic on television, humiliating them with a ghost boy in a Denny's parking lot. Because this surprisingly large, often predatory industry relies on popular culture to lend it credence and validity. To put it another way, every time a psychic makes a grieving widow cry on Dr. Oz, 10 con artists get their wings. And that is a problem, because there will always be people who feel an urge to reach out to psychics in their time of need.
Then Rachel Dratch of SNL fame comes on and they do a sketch where she pretends to be an obnoxious psychic. So, how did that make you feel? I know how it made me feel, and I'm not even a psychic, and I know that many of my listeners are. So that couldn't have felt good for most of us. I was actually a bit surprised at how offended I was. And actually, I had to get up and walk out of the room about halfway through it, leaving my husband to finish it without me. It was only tonight that I watched the second half of the clip. Right off the bat, he says, psychics aren't real. The audience seems to generally laugh and agree, and my feelers were hit in a way that you'd be forgiven if you thought someone had hurled a homophobic slur toward me from a car window. He says it's a $2.2 billion industry. He refers to medium specifically as insidious. Also, he points to a study that says 4 in 10 people in America believe in psychics. This, of course, is meant to shock the audience. All those poor ignorant bumpkins who believe psychics are real. It hurt. I don't believe all psychics are real, and I know that some are shams, but in my eyes, I'm pretty sure it's a thing in general. I'm not at all a fan of Teresa Caputo, but I don't doubt that she has at least some ability. Then again, you know, my skeptic side kicked in a bit, and it made my believer side give the skeptic side a bit of the silent treatment. I mean, John Edward fumbling around with those Irish names did make me chuckle, and most of the clips really weren't evidence of stellar work, right? Cold reading and hot reading really happens, and there are things to look out for. A really good resource for looking out for those signs and finding a reputable medium is in Claire Broad's book with Teresa Chung, Answers from Heaven. So if you're looking for that, that's a good place. I absolutely love Tyler Henry. I think you probably know that. And I've forever been trying to get him on the show. But I can understand being skeptical of any medium who reads mostly celebrities because, duh, it would be really easy to just already have knowledge of well-known people, even without turning to Google. And there was more than one major flop for Sylvia Browne. In addition to the big miss that was mentioned in the clip, she was wrong about a boy who had been missing for 4 years, Sean Hornbeck. I remember it very well because he was a local boy, and it really touched me in my teacher heart right when I first started teaching. Sylvia told Sean's parents that he was dead. He's alive today. He's around 25 years old, I believe. John Oliver blames Montel Williams for giving Sylvia Browne a platform. So would he call me an awful person for giving dozens of psychic mediums a platform? Well, as soon as I left the room, skipping out on the rest of the segment, I immediately found the clip and shared it in the Big Seance Parlor on Facebook. I was curious to know if I was overreacting. I'm still wondering if I'm overreacting. Some of the comments were that the segment was unbalanced and ignorant. One commenter said that it had valid points, but clearly bashed psychics and made inaccurate blanket statements about all psychics as a group. One member brought up the fact that about the same time last week, the New York Times produced a feature titled Inside the Secret Sting Operations to Expose Celebrity Psychics. The subtitle reads, "Are some celebrity mediums fooling their audience members by reading social media pages in advance? A group of online vigilantes is about to prove it." Another member of the parlor didn't even want to watch the John Oliver segment. But I really liked what Corey Shoth had to say, and I hope he doesn't mind me identifying him with his comment. He said, "I watched the full segment, and he does raise some valid points. Obviously, he is not a believer and is making an argument for that. There are plenty of times when psychics get it wrong, but there are also stories where psychics have been right. He doesn't present the times when they were correct or seems to know how genuine psychics work. No psychic has been 100% every time. I feel when you present yourself as a psychic to a paying public, you will receive a healthy amount of skepticism and ridicule. He isn't saying anything new that has already been said about psychics. So now I ask you, how did this segment make you feel? I have listeners of all types from all walks of life, and I know some of you are more skeptic, and some of you are psychic mediums, or at least have abilities that I don't have. But I haven't processed this thing completely yet, and I'd love to hear from you. What's your response to this? Please consider going to bigseance.com/contact, or just click the link in the show notes to learn how to send me some voice feedback. That link will help you use SpeakPipe to tell me what you think. You can also just call the feedback line at 775-583-5563. Email is patrick@bigseance.com. But do let me know your thoughts, and we might just have a follow-up episode in our future. Thank you to the following super paranerds who support the show at patreon.com/bigseance. Genesis, Diana Lloyd, Natalie, Sonia B., Kim Robb, Jim Budd, Josiel Lorenzo, Susan Davey, and Paula Mitchell. My supporters at the parlor guest level, who can be found at bigseance.com/parlorguests, are Linda of shimmeringmoons.com, Denise Sia of Mystic Moms Paranormal, Joni Kuntz, Sylvie, Jeffrey Peck, Dina DeCastro of Dina DeCastro Astrology, Peggy Hagen, Sharon Bowles, Marion Hover Clairvoyant, Bruce Williams, Christopher Kohler, Lena and John of Carbon Lilies, Anna Frias, Norman and Linda Keller, and Karen Prine. That sound you just heard was the above and beyond there's not even a category for your level of support fireworks display. Because I have an awesome listener who chooses to remain anonymous who supports the show at the $10 level. Thank you, Paranerds.
For show notes, including links to anything we may have mentioned in this episode, visit bigseance.com. You can find and subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play Music, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and just about anywhere podcasts are found. Do you have any comments or feedback? Go to bigseance.com/feedback to learn how to get your voice in a future show. Or you can call my feedback line, 7755-TELL-ME. That's 775-583-5563. Interested in learning how to promote and share the podcast? Go to bigseance.com/share. Thank you so much for listening. Unfortunately, it's time to blow the candles out, but we'll see you and light them again next time.